Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are ready for our third day of the Hangar Talks. We will be starting exactly at 10 a.m. sharp, so please grab your coffees, have your seats, and be ready to be inspired. Good morning again. The first session we have for you today is not a session and not a story you will be hearing a lot of. The amazing pilot we have coming on stage had his first bush flying experience when he was only 24 hours old. Not years, no, 24 hours old. This incredible pilot is a legend in bush flying. He started training within aviation when he was 14 years. He started his first solo when he was 14 years old. When he was 16 years old, he got his license, and today he lives and breathes bush flying and aviation. He has more than 35,000 hours flying. Please give me the biggest round of applause for Captain Paul Klaus. Captain, we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. And what a privilege it is to be here. And a big special thank you to Sultan for the invitation. It's been a long time. We've talked about it for a lot of years. Sultan first visited us in our wild place in the Wrangell Mountains in 1986, I think it was. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And you live in Alaska and you fly in Alaska, and your entire life is only about aviation.
I have been very blessed.
Yes, and I spoke to your wife and daughter as well, and they are both aviators, correct?
Our whole family flies, yeah, and there really isn't any other choice. We all love flying, but the reason we fly is because it is a tool to do what we want to do, and what we want to do is explore the wilderness. And we live in a very wild place. This is a map up here of Alaska and Canada and Baffin Island and all that. The red line is a trip I took to Greenland, but that's another story. Won't go into that. But in the far left-hand corner over there, you can see where the red line starts, and that's where we live. You see all the white there?
Oh, wow.
That's all glaciated areas, and in my presentation here, you're going to see lots of glaciers.
That's completely isolated and completely in the wilderness, correct?
Right.
I've read that even for you to get your groceries, you actually have to go bush flying to reach somewhere that sells groceries.
Right. I have to fly 100 miles to get my mail.
Oh, wow. We would love to know, why did you and your beautiful family choose, number one, aviation, and choose to live in the wilderness in Alaska, completely isolated?
Well, I guess that's the reason right there. It's spectacular. We live on a river that's 150 miles long, and we're the only human beings on that entire river. There is no other way to get there than by air, either a helicopter or an airplane. No other way to do it. And so, yeah, the reason to do that is somehow we had to live there and still make a living. So we have a Part 135 air taxi and a lodge, fly-in lodge that Sultan's been to a couple times. And yeah, it's been a privilege to live there. I've got a lot of pictures, so I'll kind of go fast through these.
Yes,
and we
please.
have a video at the end here. And so this is Sultan this year, and my mom is standing next to him there on his right, and Logan, our youngest daughter. And
that's a beautiful picture.
Yeah. So here's Sultan exploring in a glacier inside of an ice cave, and probably no other human had ever walked there before. Where else can you do that in the world, right?
Like a true adventurer.
And that's you think that water might be cold? Sultan can attest to it being quite cold, huh? Here we're enjoying it. And you'll see in my presentation, I've purposely put in numerous pictures of sand dunes, because we're kind of proud of our sand dunes. But coming here, you guys got a few more than we do.
This is
my
beautiful.
father on the right, and he came to Alaska in the mid-'50s. And he was also a very accomplished bush pilot. On the left is Atlee Dodge. He's one of the manufacturers of bush modifications to Super Cubs and Cessna aircraft. And both of my father and him have passed away now. They're in an albatross there. They're exploring the Aleutian Islands. So I have to continue to reiterate that the airplane is a tool to do what we want to do, and that is explore the bush. And of course, most places you go and land, you probably are the only person that's ever been there before. And so you have to be prepared.
That gives you a feeling of independence.
We take things like small pack rafts along so that we can float the rivers, exploring the beauty. That's what we like to do. And our main tool of choice is a Piper Super Cub. We have 7 Super Cubs, and they're equipped with these great big balloon tires. And yeah, these are our Jeeps. We live in the largest protected landmass, a national park called Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, and we're only allowed to use aircraft. We only are allowed to use fixed-wing aircraft. We're not allowed to use helicopters.
So, Captain Paul, we would love to know why bush flying in particular, and what made this passion come to life?
That's a good question. Bush flying, what is bush flying? What really is it? To me, it's just being able to go into places where there aren't anything approved. There's no approved runways. I fly 1,000 hours a year, and at times, and most of that is 90% of that is off airport. So, in the background there is our Turbine Otter. It's a 1,000 horsepower Garrett powered, and that's the first one with a Garrett TPE-10. So here we go. This is not Saudi Arabia. This is Alaska. This is actually the middle of Alaska, and it's a sand dune that hardly anybody ever gets to see, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And I took my youngest daughter there, Logan, a few years ago, and we explored it. We use these Arctic oven tents, which are like little yurts, but kind of like what you see around here, I suppose. But maybe not the trees, but
it's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
So Alaska has sand dunes too. These are wolf tracks.
Are you sure this is not Saudi?
Yeah. And another part of our business is science-related. I fly for NASA. So Sultan, of course, has been in space, but there's 3 aircraft that are used by NASA for glacier research. And the Turbine Otter is the privately owned one I own, and we do all the glaciers from southern British Columbia to the Aleutian Islands twice a year. And the other 2 aircraft are owned by NASA, and they're flown in Antarctica and Greenland.
No wonder.
So here we're actually on a science project here, mapping some of the glaciers that you see in the background. And the mountain in the background there's called Mount Fairweather. And this is a very nice day, obviously, but it's not normally that way. And along the way you see some of the mountain creatures. Here is a glacier that is just opened up. This crack just exposed, and the water that's on the surface is spilling into it. Now we're planning a trip across Alaska from the North Pacific to the Arctic Ocean on the 141st degree parallel. In order to do that, you have to have a lot of gas. Yeah, we stopped along the way to get on the Klondike to get an ice cream bar. That's the only other place there was. Nowadays, with modern technology, bush flying has made bush flying a lot easier. Well, some parts of it easier. Technology, you can look on Google Earth and have an idea where you might be able to land. And on this particular trip, I pre-plotted all these positions where I thought I might be able to land a heavy Cessna 185. And the goal was to land on the 141 line or within a walking distance of it. And we did that. It was a 4-day expedition, and we were able to land along the way. The next thing that's changed bush aviation over the years is the satellite telephone, satellite technology in general, GPS, satellite technology, but this has made it much safer, I guess, in a way. It's taken a chunk of the wilderness out of that, but it's a necessary evil, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, the views and the pictures are not regular places you would see with a regular runway, and for any other aviator that is not specialized in bush flying. I'm sure you've had multiple stories with very dangerous circumstances, correct?
Yeah, you'll...
And it looks like it as well. We would love to hear one of your most difficult situations while you were in one of your bush flying experiences.
Well, I guess those are the kind of things you kind of put out of your mind. One time I had to shear a crankshaft. In fact, there's an AD on IO 520 engines now because of what happened to me. I was the first one that had a crankshaft failure, and it was over the largest non-polar ice field in the world, and I spent 4 days up there in my underwear. So it was a long 4 days. I didn't have a drop. I had stripped the airplane of all the survival gear and everything that I should have had in the plane because I wasn't going to have an engine failure, right? But anyway, I did. That was it. All turned out good. The airplane was salvaged and not hurt. So
you say that so casually, Captain, as if it was just a normal day.
You know, with 35,000 hours of that type of flying, I think just about anything that could happen has happened. I guess what I pride myself in is that I've never hurt myself or any other person. So that's what I. But as far as this is the kind of terrain we land on. Things like that. It's you do that every day, day in and day out, and then you're going to have some trouble occasionally. Alaska moose.
But it looks so much worth it.
So in the wintertime, of course, we put the airplanes on skis. This particular Super Cub is our lightest one. I don't know if anybody follow Valdez Air Show. There's a fly-in there for STOL competition, short takeoff and landing. And I've won it, I think, 7 times with that airplane right there. And that's a stock 1953 Super Cub. It hasn't been modified.
And all of this is in...
I'm sorry?
All of these pictures are in Alaska, correct?
Correct. And most of them are all right around our place. But we also have a ski season. That starts up... It's our first part of our season. It starts in March and goes through May. And so soon we'll be doing that. We do a lot of mountain climbing. We have some of the biggest mountains on the planet right there. And even our airplanes ski, so we get to do turns with our airplanes.
Looks like a very healthy airplane.
And you got to wonder who the pilot really is here. Will the real true pilot please stand up?
Your whole family are pilots, even your dogs.
Yeah. a moose and a newborn baby. Every year the moose antlers drop off, naturally shed, they fall off, and it's one of our pastimes. So we fly around kind of like a egg hunt or something. We fly around and look for the shed moose antlers and land and pick them up. This is a trip to the Arctic and the northern part of Alaska, the Brooks Range. There's nothing like the freedom to be able to fly in a bush plane and explore the wilderness.
You have no limitations. And
exactly.
It shows within the pictures.
And here, of course, we're using old-fashioned techniques. It's called a map. Anybody ever heard of a map? I get a kick out. Nowadays, it seems like people more and more don't know how to use a map. And if that GPS ever goes away, I tell you what, there's going to be a lot of people that are lost out there. But we still are old-fashioned and still use the maps. And here, this is high-tech technology. Here we have a satellite connection with the internet. We're able to use the internet in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, technology's there. It's amazing.
This is so free. I mean, just looking at these pictures, without a runway, without the
This is a Saudi Arabian family here that came out to visit us. Yeah. And you got to be tough to live in Alaska. Even the flowers are tough. They even grow through the snow.
They find a way to make it.
Yeah. Camping on a glacier.
My God. Just looking at these, Captain Paul,
this would be a place you wouldn't want to camp under. And that really is that steep. The hardest part about this place was to try to get the plane to be able to stay there once you got out of it. Had to dig a hole under one tire to anchor it there, and it's pretty steep. And landing in the snow on wheels, that's not a smart idea. That snow is about a maximum amount of depth that a wheel could take without nosing the plane over. And this is a glacier called Icy Bay, and a glacier flows right down to the salt water.
I can't believe this. I mean, I don't see a runway in any of these pictures.
I've heard a lot of talk about Kodiaks here since I've been here. Everybody's talking Kodiaks. This is Kodiak number 96, I think, or something like that. The man on my right there is a longtime buddy from Switzerland, and he flies that thing regularly. I think he's made 6 trips so far from Switzerland to Alaska, and he's coming again this next year. So we go nose to nose. The Kodiak, when I did the engine conversion for the Otter there, was thought to be the new replacement for the Otter. And it's a great airplane. I like the Kodiak, but it's not a replacement for the Otter for what the Otter does.
So, Captain Paul, I believe you were quoted saying, "There is nothing I would rather do than put those wings on and fly away to another new place, especially if no one has ever been there before."
That's my passion, yeah.
And it shows from all of these pictures. I mean, these are untouched places.
Yeah, I mean, you look what you see. You know, here in this particular picture here, this mountain had just collapsed, and there's a big snow that came down. I mean, that's monstrous. And with the bush area, you could fly over that in a Learjet and look at it, right? But you're not going to really get the feel. But look at here. I just landed there right beside it.
Wow.
And you get out and you get to see it. And so that's what we really like to do, is to really, go out and explore.
That is true freedom.
I can't say enough that I love airplanes. I love to, it'd be interesting to fly around Saudi Arabia here, unbelievable. But for me, what the airplane is a tool. It's a tool to go do something that I really like to do. So this is the North Gulf Coast, the farthest, most northern part of the Pacific Ocean. And it's a beach called the Lost Coast. This is inside the brains of a whale. It's a whale skull. So once again, the bush flying enables you to find things that you don't get to see very often. Where did that come from? That's a surprise. Sultan, all right. Yeah, fabulous.
So what's the story behind this flight?
So this is in 1986, a long time ago, and we're out on the snow, obviously landed on wheel skis, and we're going skiing.
While your airplane actually just went skiing as well, right?
And here we're on top of a mountain. This is still one of the, over all the years, and I mean this, of all the different things I've done with guests. We go out almost every single day, but this was one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had, and it was with Sultan. And we climbed this mountain, and we had a whole entourage of people, including guides and some of his people and all that, and he just kept falling off to the side, and we just kept going up, and I kept asking Sultan, you want to turn around? We're getting a long ways back to the lodge, and he kept saying, no, we're farther up, let's go. So you can see the top of the mountain there, and we get to the top, but it's not the top. And the top is like over there and way up there, and I said, if we go up to the top of there, it's going to be dark till we get back. And he says, let's go. So it was really a lot of fun.
It looks beautiful. So Captain Paul, I believe you have a video to show us, correct?
Yeah, do you want to put that on now?
Yes. Do you mind if we please put the video of Captain Paul? I mean, we cannot get enough of seeing these pictures. Honestly, my brain is just blown away from the freedom behind it. I don't see a runway. I don't see any constraints. And this is true independence, what I see right here.
I'm sorry?
This is true independence, what I see right here.
Yes, it's the biggest... let's go.
I know exactly where we're going. Ready to go, dude? Ready to go, dude?
This is my son-in-law. He's an Alaskan Airline pilot now. His second generation. His father was the chief pilot for Alaska Airlines.
Come out to break a night when the pink sky's waving goodbye. She come out to break a night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free a reckless heart. She's trying to be a slide as and breathe.
It is the only way of life, huh?
A bush pilot, yeah. What is a bush pilot? Somebody that lands in the bushes. No. We do a very unique type of flying in that it is, we never land anywhere that would be considered a real runway. We land in mountaintops, on river bottoms, sandbars, beaches, anywhere basically. And it takes a different type of training for that. You have to be, you fly by feeling instead of by numbers, and it takes a long time, a lot of experience. There are few people that do it very well, and we do here.
Yeah, bush pilots are people that love exploring. They love getting out there. Love really exploring Earth with aviation and exploring the edges of aviation safely.
In true bush flying, you are picking the spot, you are analyzing the spot, whether it's suitable to land and whether you're going to take off again, and that's kind of bush flying. And landing someplace where nobody has ever landed before. When somebody lands there, now the mystery's gone, you know.
Yeah, you're filming all these right now. Go fast. I'd say growing up, it seemed very normal to be in a family of bush pilots, but it was since I was like 5 days old, I've been in and around bush planes. So for me, it's like, hey, Dad, can I borrow the plane instead of the car?
Show up that area today.
No cars, just airplanes.
Well, Super Cub's an amazing device. It was built in the mid-50s, and they have not been able to make anything better. They're still doing it. There are people that do experimental type aircraft to try to compete with these airplanes, and Mr. Piper, who designed the Super Cub, did a near perfect deal. And I tell everybody that if I could only have one airplane in the entire world, from a 747 to an A-Star helicopter, it'd be a Super Cub, because They're simple, they perform amazingly well, and in a lot of the ways it's like strapping on wings and you become a bird.
Well, the Super Cub is, it's a super sturdy airplane, kind of the Jeep of the sky. You know, they're very durable and can do some amazing things.
The Super Cubs in particular, they always feel like a magic carpet to me because it's kind of like they're a transport tool. They get you to where you want to be, and that's the biggest thing for me. I love the sheer joy of flying itself.
That's my son.
But for me, it's the access.
All your family are
and
pilots.
a land where you can spend days and days or weeks trying to get somewhere on foot, and then you hop in one of these little guys and you're there in an hour. So it's this time machine.
There's been modifications to the Super Cub over the years, and one of the best ones is the big tires that we use, and they actually enable us to do things that in my dad's era we weren't able to do. Make it a lot safer. If you misjudge an area and it's a little bit rougher, or rocks are bigger than you thought they were, those tires make it a much safer operation.
Where are we?
We are in the part of the Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, which is the largest protected landmass on the planet. It's a spectacular place, over 13 million acres of wilderness, true wilderness.
And what is true wilderness?
Oh man, that's a horrible question.
What is true wilderness? Well, there's not much of it left. To me, true wilderness has to be places that ideally no one's ever been, and so you're the pioneer, you're the explorer, you're the person that is seeing it for the first time, and that means it's unpredictable. You don't know for sure what's around the next corner. You don't know, what you're going to run into. But it still has to be a bit unknown to be true wilderness.
Well, this is a Glock 45 Auto for bears. The most important thing is a Snickers bar for when people get hangry on hikes. That's the Snickers bar. And skin cancer is a real killer. Everybody use sunblock. That's important. Yeah. So big thing on safety, sunblock, Snickers, and the occasional 45 Auto.
Alaska airline pilot.
Grizzly bears.
What do I love about bush flying? To me, the airplane is a tool. The airplane is a tool to get into the wilderness. I love wilderness, I love wild places, I love exploring. To be able to land and get into some place that maybe no one's ever been, and explore true wilderness, that's what I enjoy.
The type of flying we do is very free. I would say that's the biggest benefit, is just the freedom we have to go wherever we want.
It's a good question. Honestly, what I love flying the most is access to remote places you can't get to otherwise.
I love to be able to
That's our
get a
oldest
different
daughter. She
perspective
runs
on the
South
world,
Matilda.
kind of a bird's eye view.
And of course
see
she's
what's
a
going
pilot.
on. There's no boundaries. You can go up, down, sideways, circles, whatever you want to do.
And she's going to make me a grandpa
Total
in a
freedom.
couple months.
You know, there's north, south, east, and west, and you can go any direction, and every day you find new places to go to, new things to see, because it's always changing. You know, the landscape here changes on a daily basis with the ice and the water, and some place you landed last week doesn't even exist this week.
Can't even believe that.
I just feel really privileged to have a job like this. A lot of people tell me that I got the best job in the world, and I agree. So I get to go out every day, meet people from all over the world, and explore new places. And for me, I have as much fun as they do.
Honestly, all I want to do now is just go to Alaska and live in the wilderness with you.
Well, I'd like to have a Super Cub and go explore Saudi Arabia.
I mean, your story is incredible. Your family story is incredible. How you met your wife, Donna, and she's also a pilot. Your entire family are aviators. My last question to you, Paul, prior to opening the stage for Q&A. Do you consider this a job, a life, or a passion?
It's a lifestyle. So it's also a job, of course, but it's you know, it doesn't have anything to do with necessarily making money. It's a passion.
I love your answer. Do we have any questions from the stage? Yes. Prince Sultan, if we could please have a microphone over there.
I have a comment. Thank you very much, Paul. The experience is much more than what you see on a video. I don't encourage people to go to Alaska, really. Just leave it alone. But I think Paul forgot the most important part of my visit in '86 and in 2019. And for Saudis, that's a very critical part that you should not have forgotten. You know what it is?
I know what it is.
What is it?
The meal you cook.
What did you eat?
Kabsa, طبعا.
Oh, in Alaska.
In Alaska.
Oh, wow.
I did one in the South Pole. And there was 4 kinds of rice I used in the South Pole, and the meat was frozen. I threw everything in one pot, and the plane came to pick us up. And I had a friend who really wanted to get out, and the plane would only keep the engines, the C-130, running for 15 minutes. And I said, I'm not going without eating the kabsa in South Pole. So I don't cook really. I just do it once a year.
Oh, you cook good.
So this year we did, well, remember, '86 we did one, and it came out not bad, and this year came out really good.
And my mom, alias Granny, still talks about his cooking.
About the kabsa?
And that's a big thing because she's a world-famous cook, especially for her cookies.
And also, the mountain we climbed took us 11 hours, and I put my name on the top. So the name was on the top.
And it's still there.
On the weather station.
What's it called
34 years.
Mount Sultan, of course.
Allah!
But Paul and the family, they're my family. And I remember
Absolutely.
your dad, and I remember, of course, your mom is a very energetic lady. She's a marathonist, and this is a great family.
It truly is.
Really great. I mean, I felt right at home, and the flying, we had like 10 airplanes lined up, so we didn't do anything except fly and hike, and 3-4 days, and that's all we got this year, but coming in the summer, inshallah.
I mean, we cannot get enough of these pictures and of your story and of your incredible family. I was talking to Donna 2 days ago. I'm sorry to put you on the spotlight, Donna, but your story is also incredible, and how you met Captain Paul as well. If I could please request for you to just reiterate that story for our incredible audience today, and your individual story also of being an aviator up until you met Captain Paul, because your family story is beautiful. If we can please have a microphone over here. Captain Donna.
I went to Alaska the day after I graduated from college. I landed in Fairbanks on a big jet, stood on the ground and knew I'd come home. And I drove heavy equipment. I worked on the pipeline. I did all kinds of things, but I soon learned that the only way to get around Alaska is by air. So I worked 4 different jobs, saved all my money, quit them all, and got my pilot's license in 2 weeks. Yeah, that was...
True story.
Yeah. I
In a Super Cub, tail dragger.
Yeah, yeah. And then I got a job flying for the government out in the bush, very far in the bush, 42 villages. I explored in the horrid weather, unbelievable weather of western Alaska, and met him along the way, and he let me fish on his commercial fishing boat for free. And 3 years later, I had to marry him to get any money out of him. So
that's a beautiful marriage.
Yeah, there we go. And he's the
38
pilot.
years this year.
Yeah, and it's been great.
Your story is incredible.
Yeah.
We thank you so much for being a part of Saudi's Hangar Talks.
Okay,
And we thank you so much.
I want to say something
Yes.
to Sultan about. He made an impact on our lives more than anybody else has through all these years, and we've had a lot of people there. He could have anything, but he values going out in the wilderness doing physical things and doing his own stuff, and that is so rare. And we appreciate that, Sultan. You set a standard pretty high for all the rest of our guests. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Your Royal Highness, and thank you, Captain Paul, and your beautiful
family. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next incredible speaker, I mean, no words can do her justice. I just want to give a brief introduction, even though I cannot do her justice, and we will be showing you a short video clip prior to hearing from the legend herself. But the person we're about to hear from is the first armless pilot to ever be licensed in history. She is the exact resemblance of perseverance, determination, and of willpower. She's the first ever in history to have a black belt in Taekwondo while being an armless person with extreme determination, extreme willpower. She's a story, she's an experience, and she shows the world there is no limits to human potential. Please give me the biggest round of applause to Captain Jessica Cox. And we will be seeing an amazing video of her prior to hearing from the legend herself. If we can please play the video.
When I was growing up, my mom used to worry that I wouldn't be able to do all the things I needed to do. But I just learned to do things with my feet that other kids did with their hands. I learned to drink from a glass, color with crayons, unwrap birthday presents just like everybody else. I started taking Taekwondo when I was 10. 4 years later, I was the first person without arms to get a black belt in the American Taekwondo Association.
Some people are afraid of the water or saying they can't do something, but it's not about that. It's just going out there and saying, how can I accomplish it, as opposed to, can I accomplish it?
Our next guest is living proof that you can accomplish anything. Please welcome Jessica Cox. And it's one thing to do karate and play piano, but you decide, I'm going to learn how to fly. What made you do that?
On the elementary playground, I remember on the swings envisioning myself being Superwoman, and I could fly over the playground, and I was everyone's hero, and one at a time I would take a person up and share my superpower. And it wasn't until years later that I was able to fulfill that dream of being Superwoman. Everything was a challenge. The basic challenge of learning how to put on my headset, learning how to buckle my seatbelt, and probably the greatest challenge was learning to land the plane safely. But I think the greater the challenge, the greater the appreciation you have when you've accomplished it.
I always say that I don't think I'd ever want to do anything to prove myself to anyone. If I did anything, it was either to prove it to myself or because of the enjoyment of it, but not to prove to anyone else that I could do it. I live my life saying that, this is me. I'm not a victim of anything, and, I can do whatever I want to do. My mom told me that I can do whatever I want to do.
Shukran. And I'd like to thank Prince Sultan, the Saudi Aviation Club, the Saudi Space Commission for this wonderful opportunity to be able to share my message and share my story for the very first time in Saudi Arabia here in Riyadh. I would like to share with you the very story that began my dream of flying in an airplane. When I was younger, in elementary school, I remember being very angry and frustrated because of the way that I was born. Being born without arms meant a lot of frustrating days when I felt like no one could understand me. And I remember being in school wanting to climb up the slide in the middle of the playground. And the slide is 12 feet tall. And I had this desire to climb up the ladder and use my chin to hold on the ladder above and my feet to climb up the ladder like all the other children. But in fear of me hurting myself, all of the adults would keep me off the slide. And at times it made me very angry and frustrated, so I would sit on the swings, close my eyes, and envision flying high above the playground. Unknowingly, this dream planted the seed to one day do whatever it takes to be able to fly an airplane with just my feet. Shortly after college, I had the opportunity to go up on my first flight in a small airplane. I'd never been in a small airplane my entire life. I was 21 years old and I had my degree. And now I had this opportunity to go fly. And when I went up on that flight, despite it being my greatest fear, I made the commitment to do whatever it takes to become a certified pilot. And that journey started very shortly after that first flight when I went to a flight school. And I had the opportunity to start training after convincing a flight instructor to take me on as a student pilot. But the very first challenge I want you to think about flying and what it's like to fly, there were a couple things that I had to actually work through. Because when you think about flying without arms and hands, well, for one, I use my feet as my hands. So the first challenge was figuring out how to buckle up in the seatbelt. And even before that, I had to figure out how to put on my headset. So I brought my headset here because the first two headsets that I tried to put on, I broke. And as you know, most pilots know, headsets are not very cheap. So after that first attempt to put on the headset, I thought, well, I needed something pretty heavy duty, something that I could put on with only one foot. Because the airplane that I fly in is called an air coupe. And the air coupe is a two-seater airplane with very limited space. So having to put this headset on with my foot was more complicated because I had to do it with only one foot. There wasn't enough room to the side, to my left, to be able to use both feet. So I figured out how to use my chin and shoulder and get it over my head just like this. And that was the very first obstacle that I had to overcome. Thank you. The next challenge was the 4-point safety harness. And looking down at that seat and wondering how to buckle myself into a 4-point safety harness, I looked down on the floor and I caught a glimpse of my shoe. And the shoe represented something for me very important. It represented an obstacle that I had to overcome as a child, tying my shoelaces. So I remember, I'm going to put this out here in front to show all of you, and I hope the camera can capture this so that you can all see it if it's difficult to see from where you're seated. Well, I had the shoe in front of me as a child, and looking down, I recognized the regular method would not work for me because my teacher had her foot inside the shoe, and she grabbed the laces with both of her hands. But for me, tying my laces, I would have to use my toes, and if my foot was inside the shoe, I wouldn't have access to my toes. So unlike everyone else in my kindergarten class, I took both feet out of the shoe, over, through, and pull to tighten. One bunny ear, over, through, and after a couple hundred tries, I managed to pull that lace out. Here, I'll do it one more time here.
It is more challenging with socks, but my toes are sure cold, so I have to keep those socks on. Over, through, and pull to tighten. And once I did that, I was able to slip my foot inside the shoe. But thank you. Once my foot was inside the shoe, I wondered, what about the other shoe? Tie both shoes first to make sure they're loose enough and slip both feet in, and that's exactly what I did. At the age of 6 years old, I not only learned how to tie my own shoelaces, but I learned the importance of thinking outside the shoe. Thinking outside the shoe is exactly how I was able to buckle myself into the 4-point safety harness. So having both shoes off, I stood up in the pilot in command seat. I took the components to the 4-point harness, and I weaved that lap belt through that right shoulder strap, through that left shoulder strap, and I buckled in place. Then went over to that left shoulder strap and loosened that right shoulder strap, loosened that, loosened up the lap belt, and slid my body inside the harness. Then I was able to pull the strap over the left shoulder and tighten that with my right foot, strap over the right shoulder, tighten that with my left foot, pull my lap belt snugly in place. 45 minutes later, my flight instructor got in and he was impressed. He asked me, "How did you do it?" And I told him I was thinking outside the shoe. I was committed to finding a way. And thinking outside the shoe helped me through the whole journey of flight training. I want to tell you about 3 challenges that we faced at the very beginning of my training. The first one was, how would the Federal Aviation Administration receive the news that a woman without arms wanted to fly an airplane? Well, we were aware of the light sport certificate that was actually very new in 2005. In 2004, the light sport certificate was brand new, and we thought that going the route of light sport certificate would allow me to continue my training without a medical. And without a medical meant the FAA really didn't have to know about my training. My driver's license acts as a medical with a light sport certificate. And so we continued on the training for a light sport certificate. But the second challenge was figuring out what instructor would like to take on a student without arms. For the instructors out there, how many of you would like to take on that kind of challenge? I'm sure there are a few of you, but I brought the question up to a number of instructors, and many of them were unsure how to handle this obstacle, this challenge. But another instructor had a student who had polio. And because the student that he had previous to me had polio, he was able to know that it would be just fine. We'd modify a couple things. And so he took me on as his student. But the third question is, what type of airplane would work for me? The Air Coupe was built in the 1940s. And it is the only airplane that has 2 less rudder pedals. So it doesn't have rudder pedals, and therefore the ailerons and the rudders are interconnected. This would allow me to have 2 active controls, and therefore with 2 limbs, I could use both feet and safely fly this airplane without any assistance. The Air Coupe was the answer, an airplane built in the 1940s. And with those 3 things accomplished, we began a journey of flight training that had different obstacles. One of those challenges I wanted to share with you was figuring out how landing, which if you can imagine, landing is a very critical point. And on final, you have to have access to the airspeed as well as the yoke as far as the Air Coupe is concerned. And the challenge was figuring out how to land this airplane safely because my feet are crossed like this on the controls, 1 foot on the yoke, 1 foot on the throttle. And how would I be able to safely land the plane with my feet in the air like that, and also with the need to bring my left foot down and immediately step on the single foot brake? This was pretty complicated. So one of the things that my instructor adapted was he said, you can keep the airplane at a higher airspeed than I would normally allow most student pilots. And with that, that gave me enough room. If something were to happen, I was able to immediately correct it with more airspeed. So that was the one way to overcome that. Another challenge, I know Captain Paul mentioned the need to use maps. And the Air Coupe does not have a navigation system. So I had to figure out how it is that I could do, how I could use the sectional, the directory, and everything I needed to do in order to perform a cross-country flight. And if you can imagine, when my feet are already actively on the controls of the airplane, trying to flip through charts and things is complicated. So I came up with this idea. I used a clipboard, and we put the sectional on this clipboard, and I had it all mapped out and everything ahead of time before the cross-country flight. And that sectional was here in this clipboard, and I was able to put this lanyard, not this one, this is one for the name tags, but I had one similar to it. I wore it around my neck, and then I was able to hold this clipboard up around my neck to be able to reference the sectional at any point. And so I was able to not have to use my feet to pull up the sectional, which made it a lot easier. And the next challenge when flying was with my foot in this position, it falls asleep. And there's nothing worse than when you're coming in on final and your foot's fallen asleep. So if you think about that, everyone knows what it feels like when your foot falls asleep. I lost control in my toes, and so I needed to shake my foot out. But I have to stay in contact with the yoke. So we figured out a way in which we could put a block of wood under my left foot. Using my left knee to hold onto the yoke, I could then grip that yoke with my left knee and at the same time take my foot off the yoke and shake out my foot if it fell asleep. And it also worked really well to give me extra leverage for final when you have to pull back on the yoke. And in this position, it is a lot of ab work, I will say. But with the extra help of my knee and my foot working together to pull the yoke back to flare, it made it a lot easier. So that simple block of wood simplified that challenge we had, and we had to overcome. Now it took a number of flight instructors, 3 flight instructors, 3 different states, Florida, California, and then back in Arizona, over the course of 3 years, to finally get to the day when my instructor turned to me and said, "Now you can fly the airplane on your own." It was the moment I was waiting for. I'd waited my whole life to fly that plane. And I taxied to the end of the runway alone in the airplane. Now was the moment. The toes of my right foot were wrapped around the yoke. My left foot held on that throttle. I powered up the engine and raced down the runway, and I lifted off. I was so focused, it didn't even hit me that I was flying the airplane alone. Then at 3,000 feet, it hit me. I did it. I'm flying the airplane. And the second thought came to mind, look, Ma, no hands. It was Mother's Day. And we have actually a wonderful clip here of my solo flight that I wanted to share with all of you as an example of how wonderful this feeling was. And you will notice in the video that I did have a little challenge with my headset, and I was unable to communicate with the radio on the ground, but it made it all the more exciting to be able to fly that plane without communication. So please enjoy this short video of my solo flight.
Came to find out about parish tray leak in my own backyard, only an hour drive from Tucson. And he had me in his Air Coupe airplane training less than 24 hours from meeting him.
I can tell you that nothing was given to Jessica, nothing was made easier for her, and at times things were made tougher for her. You're gonna round out, boom, same picture.
There was a point where I was scared to land, and he just said, "Jessica, you know you can do it, you know you can do it."
We had some pretty heated discussions and knew she could do it, but the landing issue was tough. That was a lot of work.
I was prepared to solo, and I invited all my family and friends to the airport. I was distracted. I was paying more attention to the people there.
Parrish said, there's no way I'm going to sign you off to solo right now. And I knew I was disappointing people. The next morning, with only one other student at the airport, Parrish says, I'll let you solo the airplane.
Is it recording?
It says that.
Here goes Jessica on her solo flight. It's good.
Parrish said, before you go, you have to make sure that you can hear me on the radio. So I tested out the radio. Turned my first crosswind turn, and then I heard static. And I said, don't tell me, that's the radio.
Can you hear me, Jessica? Hey, Jessica, can you hear me? She had something wrong with her headset or something.
I can't really hear you.
Okay, just keep flying the airplane. You're okay. Just fly the airplane.
Came in to land, and I was low and slow.
She's all right. Stabilize out.
Good decision.
That was a good move. Can you hear me? Can you take this camera? I'm going to go out there and hopefully I'll just get her to full stop land because now she's rattled a little, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Good landing, Jessica.
I came around and I landed smoothly on the second one. I'm a perfectionist, and I wanted to make sure that that was a very good, smooth landing.
That was so awesome. I can't believe I did that. Did I scare you?
It wasn't so much that I was proving everyone who doubted me that I could do this, but it was more of a personal achievement. I had to overcome my own fear.
Anybody that accomplishes a solo, it's a huge deal. And I mean, I've had a lot of men cry and stuff. It's a very emotional time. Can you do it when we film it?
One of the traditions in flying is when you solo for the first time, they cut the tail of your shirt.
There's really nothing like that. That was so incredible. It was the most empowering thing I've ever done. For sure. First solo. I'll just put my whole name.
Very good.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, I prayed a lot to be able to do that. And so it was almost like seeing a miracle come true right before my very eyes. I was up high flying like Superwoman.
And that's a clip. Thank you.
They truly are the resemblance of all determination and of all limitless human potential.
Oh, thank
Jessica, my eyes are tearing up, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this crowd that has been so touched by your story. You're unbelievable, and you truly have a bigger calling as a human being. I mean, someone like you that has inspired millions, there's nothing impossible. If you can do it, what's anyone else's excuse? Right? My question to you, Jessica, and I'm sure, we're all just so emotional, but I really want to know, what do you believe is your calling in life?
Wow, that's quite a question.
A deep question, right?
Yeah, that is. And I think that I have been so blessed in many ways with a wonderful family, a wonderful father and mother, and upbringing and opportunity that I'm able to use flying now as a wonderful tool to reach so many people with disabilities. And I think it is such a gift to be able to give to the world, especially where people with disabilities aren't given the opportunity for education, for work. And now it's a calling, I think, to be a part of something that's greater. I may not be able to define it at the moment, but I think it is definitely to live out a great purpose that is constantly being unfolded, and I just feel fortunate to be a part of. Yes.
We are fortunate to hear your
Thank
story. Unbelievable. My next question, Jessica, you have a book that's called Disarm Your Limits, right?
Yes.
What are the key takeaways from your book? And I know it's a self-help book that you wanna reach out to a lot of people, and you want to help them realize there are no limits to their potential. If you could give us the key takeaways from your book so that all of us could also benefit from your amazing experience as well.
One of the favorite takeaways from my book is fearlessness. And Ken set it up here earlier when he said fear, F-E-A-R, stands for false evidence appearing real.
Yes,
and I think
that.
we need to be fearless and identify our greatest fear and walk directly at it. And that's one of the things I mentioned in there's importance of having courage to do the things that scare us. Because at the other end of achieving that is true empowerment. So, yes, thank you.
I can't wait to read your book myself. I cannot wait. I'm sure a lot of our incredible audience also has multiple questions, so if we could please open the room for Q&A. Anyone has any questions for Captain Jessica? Go ahead. Captain Donna, if you could please have a microphone.
I'd like for you to tell everyone what just happened to you with the new airplane.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me. In fact, we have a picture that I'm going to ask to pull that up. And I have actually, I'm going to use this here to pull up the picture. So bear with me. And I'm going to start here with this first image. Okay, this is a group of advocates from all over the Middle East that came all the way out to Tucson, Arizona, from all different areas of the Middle East to visit me in the hangar. And this is pretty phenomenal because they were able to see how aviation can be used as a tool to inspire people with disabilities. And there is the picture of an air coupe, a 1946 415C 26 Romeo air coupe that I received a phone call just a couple months ago, and the person on the phone said, I would like for you to have my airplane. And I don't know how many people can imagine what that's like to all of a sudden overnight have to figure out where you can put an airplane and what it's like to own an airplane, which I had never owned an airplane. And so that airplane right there was flown in from California and is now being used to help with a foundation that helps people with disabilities. So that air coupe, come to Arizona and fly with me if you're ever in Tucson. Look me up, and we'll go up on a flight.
I will take you up on that offer.
Okay, great.
Beautiful. Do we have any other questions for Captain Jessica? Yes, please. All right, I do have one final question for you. What is next for Jessica Cox?
That's so great of a question because I'm going to share this other picture here on this. This was my first air venture, and that's where I met Prince Sultan for the very first time. And this young boy, Sean, who has a disability, and he came up to me and said, I would love to fly. And I think that planted a seed to doing what I hope to do next, which is inspire more people with disabilities to allow them to have the experience of flying, if that means flying them for a joyride or giving them the option of using the airplane to train in. We're working that out, so that will be the next challenge, is to use that. And there's also 2 young boys there who are also born without arms from from Virginia, and they have gone flying in an air coupe. And so my goal is to continue to help people with disabilities and take the airplane across the country with a very important message. And also, who knows, I'd like to possibly get it to Saudi Arabia somehow.
Why not?
Yes. If Prince Sultan would like to be a part of that, it'd be wonderful, because I heard you're going to be taking up a flight. If you'd like to bring the air coupe out here and fly it and share that disability doesn't mean inability, we can inspire so many people. And thank you for your commitment for people with disabilities. Thank you.
You have touched all of our souls, and you are touching so many people's lives day by day, minute by minute, second by second, Jessica. Thank you so much on behalf of all of humanity. Thank you a million times. I'm sorry, we have one more question right over there. If we can have the mic, please.
Jessica, we first met, you don't remember, you probably don't remember, but we first met at Oshkosh, I think when you first came there to speak in 2009. And you were an inspiration then, you're an inspiration now, it's amazing. And I just have to ask, what reactions, have there been any amusing reactions you've gotten at airports when you pull up in the air coupe to get gas or something like that? And people, I just have to ask if there's been any amusing stories along those lines.
Sure, there have been stories of, well, for one, most pilots do know my story, so that takes away the surprise. But there have been occasions, and I look forward to more interactions, because I've already received so many reactions from people when I'm driving a car and they see me down the freeway and pull up right beside me, and then they'll give me a thumbs up or they'll drive by really slowly or try to see what I'm doing with my feet. So I haven't had too many surprises with the airplane because so many people know about me flying the air coupe, and the air coupe itself demands a certain amount of attention because it is a 1946 plane. But I'll have to jot down a whole journal to let you all know about that in the months to come.
And don't forget my offer yesterday.
Thank you for that offer. That would be wonderful. He offered that if I could check him out in the air coupe, he'd be willing to take me to sport pilot instructor, which would be a really amazing next step. He has faith in my instruction abilities. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. We have one more question from the Kings.
I'm interested in your parents, because you have this little girl born with no arms. Oh my goodness! Was there a turning point for them when they? I'm sure you've had people all through the years tell you what you could not do. Was there a turning point where they decided, we're going to help her do whatever she wants to do? I just think that, what kind of role did they play in all of this?
Well, I always share with a number of parents who come to me who have children with disabilities. Just last Tuesday, a young mom came to me, and she had a daughter who was born without arms and is 5 years old. And I explained the importance of tough love, because sometimes you have to watch your child struggle to help them become independent on their own and have that celebration. So my parents gave me a good balance of tough love and just amazing support and belief in what I could do. Naturally, in the beginning, it was very difficult, and it was very hard to figure out what they could do for me. But they did eventually come to that point where they said, we need to give her a good balance of tough love and support her in what she can do. And I will tell you, my dad was my first passenger when I took him flying, and for the first time in his life, he could not be a backseat driver because he's not a pilot. I took my mom up on her birthday. So It is very special to have great parents that I was then able to share the love of flying.
Well, it actually turned out, I'm sure they thought, oh my goodness, it turned out wonderful. As a little girl in these pictures that we saw of you, what a positive demeanor you had. You were very pleasant, and of course, you still are.
Thank you. It was tough to find any picture with me not smiling. So all the pictures, I had a wonderful upbringing, and I was fortunate for that. If you'd like to watch Right-Footed, that clip of solo flight is also in the documentary Right-Footed, and it's available on Amazon Prime for free for anyone who would like to watch Right-Footed.
And for anyone that wants to purchase Jessica's book, it's called Disarm Your Limits, as she has been doing for all of her life. Thank you so much. Thank you for inspiring humanity. Thank you for inspiring us. And thank you a million times over again, Jessica. Thank you.
May I leave one last message for everyone?
Course,
is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I wanted to share with you all one last visual, just to give you an idea of how adept my toes are to lead into an amazing Yes, I Can video that we are going to end with. And this video was done in London before the Paralympic Games in Rio. But I want to share with you that even with your toes, you can do the things that most people may not believe is possible, like, if you have to, opening up a can.
Oh my God.
And balancing that can so that you can bring it up. And using the support of the opposite leg as well as the armrest, you can bring it up to drink from the can as well. So, thank you very much. And please enjoy this video with the message, yes, I can. Thank you.
And yes, you have been doing for all your life.
May I say something?
Yes, of course.
You know, this is amazing. I work with enabled people, I call them, not disabled people. You're the biggest proof today. You know, the last person I met with that was just as inspiring was Stephen Hawking. I spent 2 hours with Stephen Hawking in Cambridge before he passed away, of course. And I was so impressed by how he hosted us, and only way he can talk with the laser beam on his cheek, which he can move, and then type, and so on. And I've been working with the disabled children for more than 30 years, over 30 years, and the King Salman Center for Disability Research also, which you're going to visit tomorrow, for so many years. And I want to live to see the day where a person like you could have hands again, where we can grow limbs again, and we can do things, because you're such an inspiring person. I have been working on this cause for so many years, and I've seen children and people who are enabled transfer themselves, making families, getting excellent jobs. Now, I got to tell you the last thing. The man who runs my IT department when I was in the Tourism and Culture before Ministry, and then now the Space Commission, in the Tourism and Culture Ministry, we were the #1 in Saudi Arabia for IT for 4 years in a row until we left it. Wow. And he was on a wheelchair. So we have people working with us who are blind, people working with us who are deaf, and people who are working with us creating the most amazing things in life. So tomorrow you're going to Noura University, and you will be also inspired by the women and the ladies and the girls of Saudi Arabia. But I want you to really show them what this is all about. So I think for everybody sitting here, you deserve a standing ovation from us, not just clapping.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you. Look at that.
Yes, I can, suddenly, yes, I can. Gee, I'm afraid to go on has turned into, yes, I can. Take a look, what do you see? 133 pounds of confidence in me. Got the feeling I can do anything, yes, I can. Something that sings in my blood is telling me, yes, I can. I was just born today, I can go all the way, yes, I can. 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 Yes, I can.
Hey, yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can! Are you ready? I can climb Everest. Yes, I can. I can fight here all night and never rest. Yes, I can. I was just born today. I can go all the way. Yes!
Wow, at the energy in this room. Jessica, you see what you've done? You see the amount of inspiration, you see the amount of energy in this room? This is unbelievable. And everyone is just on the peak of their energy levels. I know we can't get enough of Jessica, right? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the incredible session we have coming up is that of a world champion. A glider that has been a world champion for 4 times. He has set more than 60 world records. He is an author. He's a filmmaker. And he's an inspirational speaker. Captain Klaus Ullman. The biggest round of applause, please. Captain Klaus. Oh, you didn't even take the steps, huh?
Yes, I do.
Well, we're so happy to have you with us, Captain Klaus. And your experience in the gliding industry and in the aviation industry, you're a champion. You're a legend.
Yeah, just let me say just a word for Jessica. It's so unbelievable what she did, and I feel really nearly disabled as a speaker when I heard this emotional speech. It was unbelievable.
I mean, having your session after hers, she truly sets records.
It was very, very, very nice speech.
Indeed, indeed. Captain Klaus, you are a champion on your own. I mean, you're a legend on your own, and you have been a world champion for 4 times.
It was 6 times.
6 times! Oh, wow. The last I read online was 4 times, day by day, huh? Captain Klaus, we would love to know what started this passion in the aviation industry and what started your love in gliding in particular.
Yeah, I have to go back perhaps a little bit to my 6 years. My mother made something in a magazine, and we won a prize to first flight with a Cessna 172. So I was 6 years old, and I was in this plane. And so for me it was very, very impressive. I looked down. I remember always when I looked down in the fields, and the structure of the field suddenly get very different. So you saw homogeneous colors of the fields. So I was very impressed. But so we were a family with 5 children. My father worked, but we had no problems. But I remember always that my mother said to me when I said, "Wow, this would be very nice." He said, "Yeah, and you know, it's not for us." So this was a mind setting.
Why?
Yeah, because this is for lawyers, for dentists, for rich people. It's not for us. So mothers don't lie, but they don't know always the truth in life.
Yes.
So 4 years later, I made my first flight in a glider. So just we were on an airfield to show around, or what perhaps a lot of people are looking around on this very nice event. And so I achieved, I would like to fly with this thing in a winch launch. And so it was very impressive for me the first time in a glider. And so this poor pilot, it was on a high airfield, and there was a valley down. I nearly made him land in the valley because I said, "Can we fly just a little bit more?"
You couldn't get enough, huh?
Yeah, but still, it was the same. We had an airfield just near our house, but it was not for us. And I needed really some time to understand that whatever you will do in life, you can achieve it. It's just, it depends on you. It depends not on money. It depends on your passion that you want to do it. I would like to say something for Sultan because we had a very special event when we met us. Sultan came in my life in a professional context. He wanted to fly with a glider, and I could organize with the Nimbus 4 DM, where I made a lot of world record with this plane. He came to my airfield, and we looked around the glider, and so he came with a helicopter, and he said, yeah, you know, instead of going out and return, probably you can come with me to Megève. It's an altiport airport, and you can land there, spend the night in my nice chalet, and then the next day you go back. I said, I don't have a mountain qualification to land on this airfield. I felt bad. But he tried to get out the daredevil out of me. And so, you know, daredevils in aviation is not always very good. Yes. So, you know, this speech about the old and bold pilots, there are not a lot of old and bold pilots. A lot of bold pilots, a lot of old pilots, but not a lot of old and bold. So I had a bad feeling, but he arrived, he achieved to convince me to land there. He said, you know, it's nearly like London Heathrow. It's a very big runway, and so for a high airport, it's right. It's quite a big runway, but still I had not a good feeling. The reason was I had not the qualification to land there. So with a motor plane, it's a motor glider. I couldn't land with a motor, because with a motor you land and you have to have this authorization, the qualification. So finally he arrived to convince me. We fly around in this area. We flew around the Mont Blanc, very, very nice flight. And then I landed there. I prepared the landing. But you know, you have to know when you have the thing what you told me, it was like London Heathrow. So I made the runway like that. So for me, the runway was like that. It's like London Heathrow. I was worried about to go too far, because the landing is quite... So, and then we arrived there. And at the moment I had my speed, and I was always worried not to go too far, to hit the mountain at the end of the runway.
That's not a good idea.
But the problem was that the airfield is like that. So, and I was too low, and I was just inclining it. But I realized at the moment that there was no way to get around. You had just to fly.
You had to do it.
And so that is one thing I learned in my life with these 30,000 hours of gliding that I have. Whatever happens, you made a mistake, you have to continue to fly up to the end. Whatever happens, you crash the plane, but you have to do it. So I arrived just to the left wing above a little forest, and there was a platform in front of the airfield, and arrived just to avoid a collision with the trees, and then we landed, but I could not redress the plane, and so we made a ground loop, and there was just the tail of the glider broke.
Just that.
And we had no nothing insurance, nothing. It was really a smooth landing for that. Just the wing was down and made a big ground loop. The gear was out, so nothing happened. But of course, you can imagine that I felt really bad. So I said, okay, I flew with Prince Sultan, it was so bad. And so he invited me. He's in Charlie's. We had a nice evening there. He said, you know, this was quite a good experience, because I was not the pilot. It was not my plane. But I saw something. It was very interesting.
It was just my idea, but I wasn't the pilot.
Can I make a comment?
So I went home, just felt bad. And what was amazing, and I have to really to say that Sultan, some months later or next year, I had a phone call. You know, Klaus, I want to fly with you. And that was the moment when a commercial relationship turned into a friendship, because I found it really very great and grateful for me that I was not the loser. So I find I'm quite a good pilot. But,
and a good friend as well. I think Prince Stefan wants to say something.
Can I make a comment?
That was the relationship that started with
First of all, Klaus, we're lucky to have Klaus here. He's a world-class glider pilot. I mean, the things he does in his life, really, he won every award there is to win, but he flies the Andes, thousands, I don't know, 30, 40, 50,000 feet. He flies over the Himalayas. You should see the pictures. And Klaus always goes to the Himalayas and passes by here, have dinner. And I would fly with this guy blindfolded. When we took off from, what's the name of the airport we took off from?
Sarah, my platform.
That's right.
Yeah.
I said, look, instead of flying 5-6 hours and coming back, why don't we fly to my airport, which is like, I said, you remember, I said like Heathrow, 750 meters, it's asphalted, unlike his airport, it was like rough. But our airport is a one-way airport. You land one way and you take off the one way, because it's surrounded by big mountains. And we studied the plans and everything. But I remember we decided to land with the engines on. First time, it's very interesting to hear that no landing with the engine because of the qualification. So we talked to the airport manager, Jack Brown, who taught me how to fly mountains and all that stuff. So we explained everything. I knew the airport very, very well, and I glide to it all the time with no engine. So we came and went to all the points, and we came on the correct altitude. But then I think Klaus read the airport landing point, but the airport has an offset landing point because of the trees. Yes. So if you remember, Klaus, I was sitting in the back, and then I was tired flying for, I think, 6 hours or something, from mountain to mountain. And then, of course, his glider, and he's much more capable than I am. And the glider has big wings. I was actually inspecting it, maybe to buy one. So I thought this glider has a lot of legs. And the airport is spooky because of the mountains in front. So when we came, we were all set for the correct altitude, but then Klaus took a 360 to lose more altitude. And I said, and I was sitting in the back, and I said, Klaus, I think we're too low.
Yeah, that was too late.
Too late. And then of course, I knew it was too late.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe this plane can have bigger wings that can go. So what I did is, coming from the Air Force culture, we trained for the ejection seat. So I stuck myself to the chair, pulled in I breathed in, and I tied my seat belts where I can hardly breathe, and I grabbed there's two things I can grab in the glider, put my head in the backrest, and the seats are crash-proof. And I knew we're going into these trees. If you could just look at the picture, Klaus, we have the picture now.
Oh, wow. This is where you landed?
You see the airport, the runway?
You see left-hand side above.
Yeah, you see the runway way out there?
Yes.
The landing point is not at the beginning because they want it to be higher so you don't hit the trees. Yes. There's an offset landing point. And in mountains, you don't look at the runway size. You look at the inclination. So the runway is inclined, I think 4 degrees or something, so you can stop easily and you can take off easily. And this is considered to be the Heathrow of mountain runways.
Oh my God!
So we landed just in the spot.
So the soft landing looks like that.
By far too low. It was really.
But when we came on the trees, I knew we were going to go to the trees, and I was worried about the river, 1,000-meter river. So I tied in myself, and I did a little prayer for both of us. And then I can see the trees hitting the wings. I have to say that Klaus, amazingly, was in absolute control, even while hitting the trees, because he put the nose down, not to stall. I remember that. Then before the field,
the only way to survive.
Exactly. Pulled the airplane, it hit the tail, broke, and it started spinning, and I'm holding on, looking behind me to see how far the river is, because I don't want to go backwards. And then the thing stopped. I unbuckled quickly and came out, and Klaus came out, and we measured our heart rate. It was like 50 or 52. So the next day, we went to dinner. That's a plan to stay with me in my house. We went to dinner. We started to dissect this problem. We had a good time afterwards. The next day, I called Dusay, who was here, who spoke yesterday.
Yes.
And he brought the glider the day after, his glider. And of course, Klaus had a couple of people who came, his friends, picked up the glider and fixed it. I heard that this glider flew with 2 people who were doing a world record thing and hit a mountain in the Andes and both disappeared.
Oh my
Same
God.
glider.
The same glider.
That's what I heard.
No, it was the same glider.
Oh,
so
similar.
There were 2 champions, Austrian champion mountain. They hit a mountain in the Andes as well with this glider.
Oh, that's a cursed glider, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it was not this. It was the same type, but not the same.
We
glider.
flew,
thank God.
It's like the Ken Hoffman story also, landing
This
on the
glider
ice.
is still
I
flying,
flew the
you know.
next day. I flew 2 days later, continued flying. And then I brought the other glider and went up, when you left the next day, I went up with Dosay and we flew for 7 hours.
Oh, wow.
Over the Mont Blanc, and we went up to 26,000 and oxygen and went into all kinds of things. The point is, people like Klaus, I learn from. You know, you have something like this happen. These things happen in cars, happen in
Yes.
motorcycles, bicycles.
Yes.
2 days ago, we had a boy riding one of those, what do you call them? They rent them now in the Wadi Hanifa at night. He got hit by a car.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, and so the point is, us in the desert, we say, ما خيال عقب طيحة, يعني, no horseman until he falls, or she.
Yes,
So
yes.
this is one of those stories. So this is, I think, my 5th life now expanded.
And it's
Yeah, I
very
saw you landed on the ice as well.
that was before.
No, but it's very smart that after such an incident, وربي حماكم, God saved you, but after such an incident, that you purposefully actually decide to go back into gliding right afterwards, immediately.
So Sultan told me that he made just the next day. I made the next month. I made the stage to land on altiports and how to do it. And I realized it's not difficult, but there are methods to learn. And this is the message I would like to give to pilots. So at first, my lesson learned was feel your belly, and the belly didn't say, no, you should not do that. And then I did it, and I think it was much better. It would have been much better to say, okay, Sultan, you know, I have not the qualification. Let's land in Albertville or in Salange, just in the beside. That would be good enough, and we'll have a good time together. That's what I learned, not to take out the daredevil. Daredevils will not live too much. So we had good luck, but it was as well the pilot skills to manage that and to fly, to continue to fly. If there would have been another thing, I would have landed probably in the forest, but in the way. So you have always to think. I was together with a man who was a stunt pilot, and he told me I would like to write a book how to crash a plane. So what I think, it's true. You always have to think how to crash a plane and to go away, because that can happen on a very simple flight at the end of the runway when the motor stops.
Yes.
Then you go in the forest, you do something. But continue to fly and continue to reflect, and this is very important.
You have to break the fear, right?
Yeah, but now this story, it's a little bit long,
but it's a great story.
So I would like to speak a little bit about my passion. I started to fly, and I achieved a lot of things because the passion was so strong. So at one point I was on the Aconcagua in 7,000 meters in the Andes, climbed there, and then I saw this beautiful landscape there and said, wow, I would like to fly here.
Ooh.
So, and then probably it was due to this lack of oxygen. But I saw these beautiful mountains, and I started to create a association which is called Mountain Wave Project, because I really like to fly with very strong winds. That is my passion. So thermals, the ridge soaring is quite nice, but flying in waves, these are over the mountains. The air mass is climbing on the exposed side, and then is descending, and there's a physical aspect that creates wave, and you can surf along these waves like a surfer on the seaside, and you can make distances, unbelievable distance with that. So you're flying between 2,000 and 10,000 meters. That's the problem of the glider, is always that you use a lot of airspace.
Yes.
So I created this in a sense, a little bit scientific organization. The first thing was, how can I fly there? It's much more easier when I say I'm flying for science. So I started to fly in Argentina, and let's say 15 years later and 50 world records more, I said I would like to change a little bit now. The mountains, I know these mountains, they're beautiful. So where are other mountains? I say, okay, I flew on the longest change of the world in the Andes, and now I would fly in the highest mountains. So, and I used the same thing, the Mountain Wave project, to create a scientific project. And so with all the things that we did in the Andes, so I had the German Aerospace, they were interested to make a mission with three-dimensional cameras for glacier exploring in the Himalayas. And that was really a very interesting project. So we had two planes. You see this plane, the Stemme plane. Probably you can make the first of my presentation, the first picture of my presentation.
Would you like to navigate?
Next, it's just this one to press. Okay.
And
so,
I'm sorry.
I do not have the presentation here.
No, it should be here. But you were saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You were saying regarding you loving to climb really high mountains, and we all know that you were the first glider in history to have climbed Everest. Correct?
Yes, yes.
We would love to hear about that experience, because I was watching your YouTube video and I saw the glider filled with ice.
Yeah, I would like to have the presentation from the Himalayas. I do not know where it is.
If you can navigate, maybe it will. Try the back button. Yes. Is it this one?
So anyway,
but yeah, if you could tell us about the
Everest. I will tell something. So the first thing was, of course, we had to go to this place. It was not like when we are flying in Argentina, the gliders are transported with a container. But there we wanted to fly down, and this beautiful ship, the Stemme, you can see it. Don't you have my presentation I gave you yesterday?
I think they are loading it now, but if you could keep on telling us about it, and I promise you they will upload it right now.
We had to fly down to Kathmandu. So the glider is produced in Berlin, and we had a last maintenance there, because it's a huge flight, 10,000 kilometers to fly down to Kathmandu. It was essentially in motor propulsion. Because we had never the time to stop. You always, it's a run against the time, because it's not night flight equipped. So we had to fly from Berlin to Graz. Then we flew to Split in Croatia. Next step was then to Rhodos. And there was quite a funny thing in Rhodos. So I flew with an entrepreneur from Finland. I flew a lot in Argentina, and he said, wow, this Everest stuff, I would like to fly on the Everest.
This Everest stuff.
Yeah. And so he financed the mission, because it's quite expensive due to handling fees so on. We spent around about 20,000 euro just in fuel and engine. And the fuel is not the main part. So we use around about 20 liters on this plane per hour. So in Rhodos, I'm a glider pilot essentially, so I have a plane license as well. But when I saw all these presentations with Gulfstream pilots, and so these are all very professional, but I'm a small plane pilot, or I was. Probably now I'm better.
You're a glider legend, Klaus, not just a pilot. You're a legend.
But the challenge is then to fly down to Kathmandu and to make something like Gulfstreams. So in Rhodos, I was a little bit sponsored by Jeppesen, so I had all the Middle East maps, IFR stuff, but in Rhodos, just the GPS went away. And so I took out my compass before, so I had no compass, so I had to go from Rhodos to Cyprus, and no GPS.
What did
the
you do?
Turkish coastline, so the controller said we go via Alpha. Where is Alpha? So I
Oh
could
my
not
God.
even a bearing. So, and we flew then to Cyprus, so I could manage it. I had by good luck so Paul said about these maps,
Yes.
and I had the Jeppesen maps in paper as well, so I could in the moving map from the glider system I could integrate some points to find Cyprus in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. And Ansi is a risk manager, entrepreneur. He said,
Yes.
we should buy a compass. And so, but
Did you
we didn't-
change your mind afterwards?
Yeah. And did you find the presentation? There are some nice photos of that. I can give you once again if you want.
I promise you they should upload it now because they should have it. But we're enjoying your stories. I know that. We're enjoying your stories so much. And we can imagine the scenery just by you saying it.
Yeah.
Did you change your mind about the compass afterwards?
Yes. So we had a look for a compass in Cyprus, but there was no aviation shop. But we found a diver compass. And so we said, it's probably a good idea to have a waterproof compass because we had to cross from Cyprus to Aqaba, and there's a lot of seaside. And when you are landing in the water with a monomotor, then probably you have a waterproof compass to see in which direction to swim. As Ansi financed it, so he had the compass on his arm, so I had to follow him in case
You had to follow his arm.
So we went to Aqaba then, beautiful stuff, and then from Aqaba we went to Hail. I was once again amazed with the friendship of Sultan. He organized everything. We could land on a normal airfield, not international. The only thing they had a little bit problem with the custom because they were not familiarized to do with cruise. And then I landed in Riyadh. And as I had this experience, I said, Riyadh is a very big hub and an international airport, so I really have to be familiarized, have a situational awareness of all the procedures with two runways and probably two different. So I learned 3 hours all the IFR approaches.
Of Riyadh, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So aviation is always you are growing. That's really, I learned a lot. Then we went from Hail, we went to Abu Dhabi. By the way, there were 3 brothers, the Al Daheri brothers, amazing reception as well. So Arabic hospitality, that's really something very, very interesting. And
did you try Arabic coffee? I think.
Yeah.
Did you try the Arabic coffee along with the Arabic hospitality?
Yes, of course, of course. So, funny thing, when we went out of Riyadh, the controller said, so we went on airways, everything with radar, with transponder. Glider was very well equipped, or a motor glider. And then, so the controller asked, "Sir, are you a monomotor?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Oh, good luck." Because we had to cross the seaside, so we went to Abu Dhabi, went to Oman, and then we had 900 kilometers of water to Karachi was the next step. And it was really the worst place where you could have this red light, low fuel pressure. We were flying in 6,000 meters, so that's amazing that this plane can fly even up to 9,200 meters.
That's incredible.
So, in the middle, between it 450 kilometers, we had this red light. So, and I managed. We have 4 electric pumps. I really checked everything, and finally it went away, the red light. But in a normal plane, let's say a Cessna or something like that, I would have been really in a bad situation. But the glider has a gliding ratio of nearly 50 kilometers with 1,000 meters. So we were always in the range of an airport.
Yes, and that's the beauty of it, right?
Yes.
And I read that in 1998 you founded a research group called Mountain Wave Project, correct?
Yes, yes.
And the core goal of that research group was to show the combination of science and adventure.
Yes.
If you could tell us about that a bit more.
So the initial idea was to learn a little bit more about wave flights because so you have some theories out of the 30s and there were a lot of research. They have been made, most of them with motorplanes, and so I wanted to learn more about that. You know, you have these beautiful lifts which are lifting up in a laminar flow, so really no turbulence in the higher altitude. You can go up. The world record now is with a pressurized glider is 23,000 meters. It's higher than the most business jet can fly.
Oh, wow.
And they have the goal to reach eventually 27,000 meters. That would be higher than any plane has flown, aerodynamic planes. I think the Blackbird, he's something like 25,000 meters. Did you find the video?
If we can know what's happening with the presentation, please. But again, Captain Klaus, we don't want to stop hearing your stories until they upload it.
Somebody can take it. So please, it's just a Riyadh presentation. Because I have beautiful videos, would be a pity not to show them.
I am sure you do. And Captain, you have more than 30,000 hours, right?
Yes.
Can we hear about, I mean, I know all aviators, they love risk and they hate risk at the same time. But we would love to hear about one of your most challenging flights that you can remember on spot right now and what you learned about it.
Yeah, that was for me, it was a flight, a record flight in 2,000 kilometers. In 2003 I made it. So the story behind is that there was a man, he passed away with 102 years just 3 years ago, Professor Joachim Küttner, which was the father of the wave. I say it always. He was a meteorological guy, a wonderful personality. He made the first, his thesis was about waves, and he explained how it works, waves, in the Riesengebirge in Polonia now. And he used 23 gliders to make the position in the wave, to measure the longitude of the wave, and it was really amazing, this man. And then he went, after World War II, he went to the United States. He was one of the 3 directors of the NASA for the Mercury and the Apollo project. And Werner von Braun asked him to join his team. And so in 1952, he had a big wave project in the Sierra Nevada wave project, and he flew. It's still a German record. He flew up to 13,800 meters in a glider in the jet stream, and they measured turbulences because they had a lot of issues with mountain waves. They lost planes because you have a huge amount of turbulence in certain areas, and they wanted to know more about that. And in 1952, when he did this flight, he had the vision and the idea to make 2,000 kilometers in one direction with a glider.
Oh my God.
And there were old gliders, they had gliding ratio about 30, the best one. And so you should know that the first 1,000 kilometer flight straight ahead was only done in 1970, something like that. And he had this vision at 52. In 1952, I was born.
Oh, wow.
So, and then this guy, he said, that should be possible. And he had not too much time due to his scientific career. And he said, I would like to give a prize for the first glider pilot who will do that. And Joachim Küttner heard about my exploration flights in Argentina. And so he wrote me a very nice letter. He presented himself. And he said, yeah, you know, I made this prize. And I think you can do that.
All right, here we go.
This is another video, but this is from my last exploration. It's not the Riyadh, but it's beautiful. So this was in Argentina, because this year we had a next scientific with 50 scientists. And there you can see I'm flying the Stemme there. It's just a photo show.
Beautiful.
And this is in Lago Argentino in the south of Patagonia, a very nice area.
Gorgeous.
So with the third biggest ice field of the world.
And you live in southern France.
And
That's where
we flew there with a Stemme, with 2 Stemmes, and we had the opportunity to make some nice videos, and there are some photos of that in our blog.
It's beautiful. But
Soaring
Captain, you
for
can't
science,
excite us like this about your most challenging story and not continue it.
Yeah, this
Let
was,
us know
this
what
was
happened.
in Argentina, and just to continue, it was in this area where I started. So Joachim Küttner asked me, you could do that probably. So 13.5 meters per second lift were there.
13.5 meters.
Ice field, and so Joachim Küttner said, you can do it probably. And I said, Joachim, I'm working for 3 years now on this project. He wanted to make with waves tailwind flight, and I said, no, I think it would be better to surf along the mountains, but you need a huge extent of the wind field to do that. And I said to him, I observed that sometimes the polar jet stream and the subtropical jet, which is in the north of Argentina, they are coming close together, and then the wind field is large enough to do probably this flight. So I tried hard for 3 years, and in the 4th year I could make this flight from the Patagonian ice fields in this area to the Atacama in the Argentinian side, 2,100 kilometers in one direction.
Oh, wow.
Was very funny
You
because
made it happen.
Yeah.
Which year was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. So it was a flight of 15 hours. So
2,100.
yeah, and you need a lot of speed, and you need a lot of challenge, because it's not one wave is going along the Andes. You have
That's incredible.
It's 30, 50 waves. You have to jump some things. You have a lot of humidity very often, and so that was really the most challenging flight. And the idea was to get the prize from Joachim Küttner, and this was really something. Did you found the Riyadh presentation, PowerPoint presentation? It's on the stick. That's it. Yes.
There we go.
So I will expedite now because,
Yes,
I'm a little bit late.
Unfortunately,
So it's about passion, about visions and missions. So I can now check this. So this is the beautiful plane that I used, the Stemme. I have a Stemme like Sultan. That's another connecting link that we have. So you have a motor behind both pilots, and in front you can see, you can open the dome, and there's a propeller. So this is a real plane with 23-meter wingspan, speeds about 200 kilometers per hour, range of 1,400 kilometers. So we flew down to Berlin. My friend Ansi Sola, it's a little bit large. You can make it a little bit smaller, this picture. So because we are cutting, okay. So it looks not really like he is looking. That's much better. So Ansi flew with me. He himself has a Stemme, and he flew from the North Cap to the South Cap. And so we had a lot of fun. So now you see some seaside, the moving map, 267 kilometers per hour. We flew in 6,000 meters, so you have a little bit more time before you take out the raft, if ever you have a problem with the monomotor. And so this is a compass you see below.
This is the entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, it was probably helpful to swim in the right direction, or to know from which direction the sharks are coming. And so fuel was as well an issue. You see, we had to make 100 liters of fuel, but there on international airports you have not always avgas or normal fuel. Ansi told me the story one time when he flew to Africa. They came with a 50-liter bag, and they came on the control and said, it's full of fuel. They say, what is that? Oh, it's 50 liters of fuel. Whoa. And so this is an issue. So we made these 3-liter bags to fill 100 liters in the tanks. Once again, we had really good help from our friend Sultan. This is a colonel from the army, Saudi Arabia. I called him always Mr. No Problem, because whatever you wanted, he said no problem.
No problem.
No problem.
No problem.
Sultan Baghdadi, a very nice guy, and he helped us here in Riyadh. Funny thing was as well, when I went, the controller said we go to the general aviation parking, and I looked always to find small planes, but I did not. The first plane on the general aviation was a 747.
Not close to a glider, no.
Yeah. So we had a good time, and really a lot of hospitality. But now, just about the mission that we had. So we had the 3-dimensional photos. We had 2 types of plane. One was with. Oh, now it's going away. It was just good. Our time is out. Just look at this last video. You have some music with that?
Oh, that's a beautiful looking glider.
So this is these are the pods that we had below the wings. 4 different cameras. It was composite pictures then built in the computer together. So now you see the Everest, the Khumbu Glacier. I had to fly with the plane in the Khumbu Glacier. And this was a 10-centimeter resolution that we had, the cameras. These are these pictures. So, and this very, very precisely, so you can measurement for geological purposes, glacier control. And so you should imagine that when you have a expedition with geologs, they have to go there with Sherpas, with everything. You could do that in one day, what they have in 6 weeks. So it's really interesting. This was a storm that we had on the Everest, and we flew with this storm.
That's the video I saw.
Yeah.
Look at that ice.
And he was so happy because we were close to the Everest, not too close, because we had 185 kilometers wind per hour. This is a 5-star hurricane, if you want.
Oh my God!
And there were really a lot. You can see some turbulences that we had there. It's the Khumbu Glacier.
But you made history, Captain Klaus. You're the first glider in history to go over Everest.
That was the first time we flew on the Everest with a motor glider, and I had the opportunity to do that just at the end of the mission. It was amazing. There was no. Now you see a little bit the turbulences that we had there. I tried to film.
You couldn't, huh?
And look at the wing. It's really good that I was in the glider because it's very resistant. And so this were the first exploration flights that I had. And then I had a last video, which is
look at that.
3 minutes when I flew above the Everest.
I don't want to finish, and I just want to keep on asking you about your gliding experience, because you gave me thrills just looking at this. You've made history, Captain Klaus, as a glider. You've made history in the aviation industry, and we thank you on behalf of all gliders and all aviators. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for your attention. If you want to see the video on the glider, you just say Klaus plus Everest, and you will see the gliding stuff along this beautiful day where the wind was just smooth, and just I could fly along the ridges of the Everest.
Beautiful.
It was a dream, and it was really
beautiful.
So
beautiful.
To encourage you, when you have dreams, just continue. So dream your life, but don't forget to live your dream.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Captain. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more session for you before we take the prayer break. And the person that we're going to be seeing a video of is a true adventurer. He went around the world in a motorcycle and then someone changed his mind to do a transition into aviation. Please welcome Captain Mish'al Al-Sideri, who will be showing us a quick video about his experience and about his incredible adventures. But maybe Captain Mish'al, if you want to say a quick word.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to thank Prince Sultan, and I dedicate this video for him because he was my mentor into the world of aviation. Also, he inspired the whole generation, my generation and the generations to come, when we saw his space shuttle. So actually raised the bar for everyone to do whatever they want in their lives. We know that we have one life to live, so we should make the most out of it, and it's a gift from God. So we should bless every day we live, and we should do the best, enjoy life. So I'll be showing you now a video, which will start with my motorcycle rides around the world. It started from Al-Ghat, my hometown, to the rest of the world. Then we will start my early days of aviation. Before that, I had a flight with Prince Sultan, which actually he convinced me to get to aviation. So my first lesson of flight, it was with him. So I'm really grateful for him. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be among this distinguished audience. I'm grateful to the Saudi Aviation Club. I'm grateful to the Saudi Space Agency. I'm grateful to the whole team working, and you for presenting that. So let's start with this, and let him put the music. يعني حاجة. شكرا.
Captain Mish'al, we are grateful for you.
chasing a lizard, we call it Saudi Arabia Love. We're getting him out of the runway. This is my first solo cross country to Al-Art. This is when I got my PPL Centennial Airport to Aspen Flying Club. It was in August 2018. I started in September directly. Here when I got my multi-engine in February 2019. Right. I started participating in shows, the SAC shows, that was in IAM 2019. And then I would like to thank Prince Sultan for giving me the opportunity to bring the Kodiak aircraft from the States. And that's my first Atlantic crossing. And we had 13 legs, and it's showing here. This is some numbers to show for that flight.
We are in actually a historical moment. Today is the 24th, Wednesday of April 2019. We're gonna fly this Kodiak 100 to Saudi Arabia. Captain Rod Kellogg. We're gonna have around 7 days flight to Saudi, more than 50 hours of flight. We're gonna go through North Atlantic, crossing through Greenland, Iceland, all the way to Europe, Egypt.
Hope everything goes smooth. You got good weather to start the trip with. Hopefully we'll carry it all the way.
This is on 19,000 feet, so we had to put the oxygen.
I'm now in the very north of Canada, and Colette, ready for the pass of the Atlantic. It's very cold here. It's a very cold day, actually. Let's hope the weather will get better so we can fly, otherwise we are stuck for 1 day here.
That's another day in.
De-icing the wings before we take off. This is between North Canada and Greenland. Now it's above the very north of the Atlantic Ocean and the Arctic Circle. This is Baffin Bay. This is Greenland.
The Atlantic, now we are in Greenland. Not to wear this suit. So hopefully today I'll take it off in Iceland, then I'm going to wear it again until we reach Ireland. Then I hope I'm going to say goodbye to that suit. Because it's not the most comfortable thing to be in.
we arrived to Rome. I hate to say, he's going to be leaving. He has some urgent thing to attend with his family. Captain Travis is going to join tomorrow to complete here from Rome to Saudi Arabia.
We're so close. I hate not to finish it, but we got to Rome. Good flying the last few days. Great days for crossing the Atlantic, and great days for flying over the Alps today. So we've been blessed with good weather, and I'm sure the blessings will continue as they get all the way into Saudi Arabia, hopefully in the next day or two. And I'll be heading back on Lufthansa. We're fast friends here on this trip, and we'll fly again soon, I'm sure.
Sure.
This is over Egypt, just reached. My hometown, البث. This is another course that was recommended to me.
PFD.
Now,
actually, let go of the stick.
To train myself.
Okay, left aileron. Push it all the way over. Push it against your leg. Use two hands. Push it against your leg. Let's roll faster. Roll faster. There you go. Nice job. Left stick only. Roll me over. More left. More. Now transition back to all the way to the right. Right. Faster. Good job. Then just pull the nose up nice and smooth. Throw the stick, Michelle. Okay. Yeah, we're almost 90. You see how the nose comes down all by itself? Yeah. Left stick only. Thing gets out. Left stick only for me. Rolling left. Okay, cool. Physically let go of the stick for me. Left aileron all the way around. Only left. Let's just go all the way around. Stop at exactly wings level. Stop it. Don't slow down to a wings level. Stop. Okay, good. Yeah, okay. All the way around. Beautiful. That was beautiful, Michelle. Good. That was quite awesome. Stick forward is push right there. Okay. Bring that nose up. Okay, you're doing great. That's plenty nose high right there. Leave it now? Yeah, just let the nose right there. Let it go. Let the airspeed decelerate. Okay, wait. Now ease forward, nice and smooth. Look at the airspeed now. Yeah, it's going 62 knots and no buffet because we were well below 1G. You want to do a loop for fun? Yeah. I'm going to talk you through a loop. So see the grid pattern on the ground outside? Yeah. Let's just look at the grids outside right now. Yeah. And then ease that stick forward. We need some more airspeed. Okay, I'm easing it. We have more forward even, more forward. Push that stick forward some more. Okay. More forward even. We need some more airspeed. Okay, now, look straight ahead. Okay. Just keep pulling the nose up for me right now. Pull it back. Doing great. Just keep looking straight ahead for now. Pull the stick straight back. Now look out your left side. Keep pulling back. Yeah. Keep pulling back. I'm looking at the left now. Yep, there we go. See how we're straight up? Keep pulling. Yeah. Keep pulling. Now ease off just a few grams for me and look forward. A little too much ease. Yeah. Okay. Look forward now. Yeah, I'm looking forward. Yeah. Okay. And now we had it. Now just smoothly keep pulling the stick back until we're level flight again. Pull it straight back. Pull harder. Okay. Pull harder. Good job. I can feel the G's. 3.9 G's. Nice job, buddy. Just keep around it now. Start a left turn. It's kind of fun to do. Kind of neat, isn't it? No. Let her keep coming down. Let her keep coming down. You're doing great. Let her come down. Let her come down. I know you can't see well, but I can. You're doing great.
This is my second Atlantic crossing with the Captain George Basulu. We flew a King Air 90A from North Dakota, Fargo, all the way to Al Ain, UAE. And this is to show you my love, my passion for my photography. This is a flight that I take. This is actually from Al taking it back to Riyadh, and I usually use these flights to take some of the photos that you see here. This is in my Cessna Skycatcher 160. Showing you some of the small towns in Saudi Arabia, I mean between Al Qasim and Riyadh. So there is a lot of small oases everywhere with the palm trees. Very beautiful topography we have here in Saudi Arabia. So it's actually a very encouraging thing to fly and see. We're reaching Tamama. This is Tamama Airport where we are here. And now I can show you some of my photos that I've taken. No, it's just photo session. Going to be for 30 seconds now. Show you. It's actually, they are all displayed on the hangar, the main hangar of the club today. All these photos are displayed. And there is two there displayed. Actually, I can say I really love my country. I love flying. I love riding. I love the whole world. So I'm really thankful for you being here. And again, I would like to extend my thanks to Prince Sultan bin Salman, my mentor and my guide into the aviation world, which I'm enjoying big time. Big thank you, Prince Sultan.
Can I make a comment? Make a comment?
Yeah, please.
First of all, I thank Michel for this amazing work. It's not about flying, it's about loving your country. And this video has to be, I hope it's going to get on our website, I hope it gets on Twitter, our media team has to take this whole thing today and the last Hangar Talks to the highest level, really, to really distribute. And I wish every time I talk to someone about flying and aviation, I wish there would be a duplicate of Mishal, really, because Mishal is an engineer, a very brilliant engineer. He's an adventurer, and he caught on very quickly. You just have to give him a little push like this. And I was really amazed how much he did in the last 2 years, and the professional attitude towards aviation. He's hooked. He's hooked as a let's say a junior aviator. Of course, size-wise and years-wise doesn't apply, but Mishal is somebody I've really always admired. His motorcycling, I'd rather do. He talked about me going to space and so on. I'd rather fly on 20 space missions and not do the motorcycle stuff that he did. I don't like motorcycles. I rode a small Italian Vespa in Sardinia some years ago with my wife. We were and I did something wrong, and the motorcycle flew from under me. It's a Vespa, very simple motorcycle. I skidded on my face on the highway, and I had a lot of Italian drivers trying to avoid me and yelling at me at the same time. So I injured bloodied my leg, and then that's the time when I said I will never get on a motorcycle. I will never jump off a perfectly working airplane. And I will never go at sea, open sea, on a sailboat, like Ken does. But Mishal, you really deserve what you did yourself. The times I intervened when Mishal went, for instance, to the States. And he said he's going to work on his license. And I said, go to Colorado, where I used to live, lock yourself up for a month, which he did. Got a small apartment, locked himself up, no people, nothing. That's what he told me anyways. And he did it, in 1 month. Every time he went to do these things, he locked himself up, because it's not easy to be an aviator. I mean, to follow the footsteps of Jessica here is very hard, but every aviator has a story. I have a story, a long story. I had to put up with Ken Hoffman for so many years. That's a big challenge, I had to fly with Klaus in a bad day. That's a challenge. And I flew with Paul, trying to land the plane in 5 feet or something like that, and teaching me how to do it. But that's the fun part of life. And Mishal said, you have one only life to live. So I also say you have one life to live, but live it safely. I remember my late brother Fahad, like I said yesterday, when I told him, why didn't you do bungee jumping with me for the first time and the last time I did it? He said, why? I said, you only live once. He said, that's a problem. If I had 10 lives, I'd do this 5 times. But if it's only one life, I'm going to. So all the aviators and pilots have to stay safe. And Mishal, for him, this is a lot safer than doing a motorcycle trip and the skiddy, 5,000 foot edge in Kashmir, Pakistan. No offense, guys. Okay.
5,000 meters.
So give me more people like Mishal, and the Saudi Aviation Club will be in excellent hands.
Yeah. Actually, you inspired us, Brother Sultan, on this. So I really thank you for your kind words that you honored me with. I'm very grateful for you.
We are grateful for you, Captain Mishal. Yes, if we can have just 1 or 2 questions, and if we can extend it to the audience prior to our prayer break. Yes, please. Yeah. We could sit just for a few minutes. You've seen Captain Mishal's adventures, whether it was motorcycles, whether it was aviation, whether it was roaming around the world, on ground and on air. So I'm sure all of you have questions, as I do as well. I would like to open the floor. Yes, Captain Pervez.
Yes, Captain, go ahead.
Sir, I remember I met you about 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And you asked me about the Cessna 337.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh.
Skymaster.
Yeah, the Skymaster. And I just told you the last summer I was flying that particular airplane for a forced fire detection contract. And are you still serious about buying that airplane?
Yeah, I am. I'm just asking you, is it worth to explore?
It's a good airplane, sir, and I'd like to ferry it from the United States for you when it happens.
Captain Vervees, could you stand up and turn around so people can see you?
Yeah.
Shall I remind people what we did? So, I have to tell this short story. In 1976, I was in Boulder, Colorado. I soloed at 9 hours of flying time. And I remember now, Jessica, with no arms, did a much better landing than Michelle did than I did. Because when I took off on the first solo, for the young guys who have not soloed yet, it's the scariest experience in the world. I've never been scared in my life of anything, including the space shuttle. But when I took off, I knew there was nobody else to land the glider, the plane. So when I came in to land, I sort of hesitated, went around like you did, and I came in and I bounced the Grumman cheetah for like 5 times. And when I stopped the plane, somebody came to me and said, there is a man with musical instruments and a jet standing there. His name is Salim bin Laden. And I have to, in his memory, because he slammed into a wire line in one of those, what do you call them? Ultralights, which I never really liked. I tried them, but never liked them. And he died some years ago. Wow. But Salim bin Laden was really one of the original aviators in Saudi Arabia. Not necessarily always by the rules, as you will hear. So those experiences makes an aviator of a person, because Salim came and he said, I knew him from Saudi Arabia. I said, what are you doing here? He said, I asked about you. They told me you're in Boulder. I came. Come with me in the jet. We'll go for a little flight. This guy was with him, Parviz, who is still flying until today at age what? 76. So we've got a long way to go, all of us. See, aviators, they don't die. You have to shoot them or they land, crash into a mountain. Because look how happy these guys, because they know they're going to fly and they're going to see the world from a different perspective. So I got into the jet in the back, and Salim said, no, come to the front, on the left. Was it you on the right side or Salim? You were in the jump seat, Salim bin Laden on the right. He started the airplane, and he said, go fly. I've never flown a jet. So we come to the runway, and before even we talk about anything, he pushes the throttle all the way up. Those original jet engines like my Lear 24. And then I grabbed onto these wheels, and steering a little bit, and I can't see the nose like the other airplanes. So it was an amazing experience, really. And then we took off, and we flew for, I don't know, half an hour, went to 45 minutes. We landed. He said goodbye to me. He said, no, you're not going anywhere. So we gave him dinner that night. So that's my very first jet flight. And I found him this year flying Sky Matters in Canada, looking for fires. And I think if he doesn't find fires, so he doesn't lose his job, he sometimes starts some fires again. Sorry? Can you stand up for a minute? Turn around. People can see you. Okay. I'll get you a picture of Captain Tahir. I think this is what Hangar talks are about sharing things.
Yeah.
Captain Tahir and I, please sit down. I called Mr. Rafiq al-Hariri, the late Prime Minister, whom I knew, and Dr. Nasser al-Sheikh. They were partners. And in Saudi, there were no planes. So I said to Nasser al-Sheikh, I said, can I borrow your plane, a Bach 111, a British Bach 111, it's bigger than the Gulfstream, but it's old engines, slow, flies for what, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? Long range tanks. So I come into the plane. They said, okay. I said, I'm going to Geneva. I go to Geneva. I got into the plane. He came out, the cockpit, Tahir, and he said, sir, would you like to fly? What do you think my answer was?
Of course.
I think he wanted me to fly on the right seat. I went to the left seat. And I never left it. We came to Geneva. He turned to me. He said, sir. I'm not inventing it, but he said, sir. Now, of course, now we're good friends. Now he calls me Abu Salman, taban. He said, sir, I have instructions from Mr. Rashid not to leave until you tell me. Now, this is this is 84. And I've got a jet, somebody else is paying for it. So I said, well, okay, don't leave. Stay in Geneva for one night, I will tell you. We took the airplane for how many days? 43 days.
Oh my God.
So Dr. Nasser Rashid, I just talked to him a week ago about his brother passing away, and he said, you still owe me money for the fuel. So we took it over the United States, South America, everywhere. So we literally stole a plane and flew it. And as early aviators, you might want to do that every once in a while. Somebody gives you a plane, don't bring it back.
That's the lesson of today.
I want to ask a question. Yes, Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, excellent presentation, very nice story. Now, Prince Sultan said that he loves flying. He got you into aviation, but he doesn't like motorbikes or sailing.
Yeah.
And those are two things that I like, also sailing and motorbikes. I suggest that maybe you can get Prince Sultan one day, if he doesn't want to get on a motorbike, they have sidecars for, kind of, so at least get him on that, take a video, that'd be a classic, I think.
Knowing the Prince, he will not be in side cart. If he doesn't have full authority on the bike, doing the best, which people take years to learn, he will not get into it. I mean, he's a man who looks for perfection, and he achieves always close of that perfection, because perfection is only for God.
Very good. Good answer. Very good. Excellent. Very good.
We have to take a break for prayer, but this is such an inspirational ending to the first session of today.
Yeah, and really thank you, Adwa. And I would like to thank the distinguished audience here. I was honored to represent my journey in life in front of them. Thank you so much, everyone.
We're honored to hear you and to be inspired.
And I would like to thank my friends in Saudi Aviation Club who helped me to get into this also. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you. Amazing presentation. We have our lunch over there, we have our coffee over here, and around 30 more minutes, our break will end, and we will start with our next sessions. And you guys, this is our third Hangar Talks, our third day of the Hangar Talks. So be prepared for the last part of Hangar Talks Saudi Arabia. Thank you.